Hi, my name is Amanda Lacy. I'm a PhD student at Texas A&M in the Sketch Recognition Lab. Today I'll be presenting on the emergent inclusion of remote meetings. I've always been completely blind. After graduating in person from a large, crowded university and then working remotely, I became interested in the dichotomy of virtual and in-person meetings. The rapid shift to online that occurred early in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic had an immense impact on our society. Remote work also changed my life. The switch to virtual events instantly improved my quality of life and ability to function. For instance, before 2020, being unable to drive limited my activities severely. With the move to remote came new opportunities, and so I was no longer limited by travel. First, let's discuss some background. A lot of the traditional issues surrounding inclusivity and accessibility are associated with compliance, institutional requirements for meeting certain standards like the Americans with Disabilities Act. The move to online removed one of the big barriers to inclusion for some people, which is physical travel. But even so, the ADA contains no explicit regulation of digital spaces. And the adoption of remote work and learning still had a lot of barriers. Some people who benefited from remote work still found it isolating.
Remote work from the before times and the rapid shift to everything being online are two very different situations. In this project, we wanted to collect specific feedback regarding inclusivity in virtual, in-person, and hybrid spaces. We conducted a two-phase study starting with a survey and then following up with one-on-one interviews. The survey introduction and questions invited the participants to think about the events they attended most frequently, both virtual and in person, and consider how well these formats met their working, access, and social needs. In total, we surveyed 104 people, spanning a variety of ages, occupations, and disabilities. Of those, we followed up with 12 people for hour-long individual sessions over Zoom. For the survey, we used Likert scale questions as well as thematic analysis on the written responses to get a quantitative understanding of our data. Most participants said that in-person gatherings met their social needs well enough. However, 40% of them said that virtual events did not meet their social needs well at all. Notably, there was no significant difference in these responses based on whether they had a disability. When discussing freedom to move in their environments and access, we found an interesting result. In person, those with no disability reported feeling like they had slightly less control than those with disability. In the interviews, we learned this was due to the interpretation of the words in our questions. For example, those with no disability felt they were constrained in movement if they couldn't grab a water bottle or eat food in a meeting without being distracted. Conversely, those with disability thought of issues related to being able to sit down, stand up, or leave the room and use the bathroom. When it came to virtual access, we found that those with disability and without reported much the same result. Again, access meant different things. Those with no disability reported the limiting factor being that they couldn't get in their car and drive somewhere. Those with disability were more concerned by having so many meetings from the same place and dealing with tech issues. Based on chi-squared analysis, we found no disparate impacts between groups. Of course, a solution where everyone is equally unhappy may not be the best one, but a solution with no disparate impact is a good place to start for improvement. Another interesting finding came when we considered people's perspective on being social in person and willingness to turn on their cameras in virtual. We found that comfort with in-person meetings increased with age and life experience, with a strong statistical correlation of R equals 0.9. However, for virtual meetings, feelings of discomfort and self-consciousness generally increased with age, but this trend was statistically not significant. Generally, all age groups felt equally uncomfortable turning their cameras on. Again, we consider the lack of disparate impacts as a good starting point. The transition from in-person to virtual meetings also brought with it an increased number of interruptions, as well as connectivity issues and technological issues when participants mentioned the difficult to describe qualities of being physically near someone. We coded this generally as in-person energy. This was the most common occurring code. One of our participants worked in healthcare and reported the difficulty of trying to provide care through remote sessions just due to the lack of body language. This is one of the major problems people had with remote. In academia, for instance, professors reported really missing the nonverbal feedback from their students. Social needs was probably the largest concern overall. We believe this speaks strongly to the need for engaging interaction through video. Research has shown the value of video and its role in the sense of community. From a policy standpoint, we believe the situation could be improved by encouraging more people to use video in fun, engaging ways. For instance, one of our student respondents said they felt video being on would cut into the professor's space. But if they could have a customizable avatar to give them a greater sense of control and fun, they would be more likely to use video. I've had this experience in my own research meetings where we played with video filters to make video fun, and it works. This could be a fun experiment within professional standards, of course. For tech issues, we believe software can help. For example, Robert's Rules of Order are a well-accepted way to manage meetings. Software that could automatically manage speaker selection and times could reduce the perception of awkward pauses and interruptions due to tech issues. Likewise, a true anonymous chat could facilitate richer interaction for students who are sometimes too shy to ask a question, even in person. Of course, this would need some moderation. Some interviewees pointed out that in-person meetings can be overwhelming to the senses, especially for people with sensory processing disabilities. Most remote platforms cut out noise above a certain frequency and volume and also display the name of the current speaker. These features sadly don't exist in real life. An easy way to retain these benefits is to keep the virtual option for the people who need it. Technology such as sound dampening materials and practices such as saying one's name before speaking can also be combined for a better in-person experience for everyone.
In this paper, we've explored emergent inclusion, which is another way of saying accessibility that happened accidentally when people with various backgrounds were all forced to adapt to a new situation at the same time. I would like to thank our participants and especially our interviewees, without whom this work would not be possible. Thank you for listening.